I haven't said anything yet, Marlene. That's why you haven't heard anything. Ah, you're connecting. Good. I'll wait till you connect. And we have people watching on our live stream, and maybe some are watching on Facebook as well. Where is Marlene Rose? She's connecting. She's connected. Well, she's from Cleveland. You know, people are connected there. Hello, Marlene. All right. Right. There she is. Can you hear me, Marlene?
Yes,
Good. I can't see you.
I can't.
You know, it is nice to be seen. There she is. Well, oh boy, are you wearing your mask when you go outside?
All the time,
Good for you.
all the
Good.
time.
Yeah. Well, we just have to get through one day at a time. And every day we get through this thing without catching the virus, we're one day closer to a vaccine. We're one day closer to returning to something that resembles normality. Well, I don't know who else is watching. I assume some people are watching on Facebook this morning and on our streaming service and what have you. Some people were watching on television last night. You know that? They were
I
watching.
was.
Were you? Isn't that nice? It's so nice to see the big screen. Well, anyway, let's begin with a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu v'mitzvot v'tzivanu la'asok divrei Torah.
Torah.
Now, this week's Torah portion is Vayishlach. It's about, it opens up with Jacob having wrestled with the angel, and his name is changed to Israel. And he somehow comes to a peaceful resolution of his differences with his brother Esau. And he has settled. Hi, Ursula.
Shalom.
And he has settled on the outskirts of a city called Shechem in Hebrew. It's the modern day Nablus on the west bank of the Jordan River. And in chapter 34, we read of a rather disturbing incident that happened. Jacob's daughter, Dinah, she decides to go into the city of Shechem. She wants to meet the women there, it says. She wants to just, you know, she wants female company. She wants to hang out with the girls there. Now, the leader of the city of Shechem, his name is Shechem, and he has, I'm sorry, his name is Hamor. There's the head of the city of Shechem is a man by the name of Hamor. His son is Shechem, and Shechem sees Dinah walking in the city, and he grabs her, he abducts her, and he rapes her. And it's a, you know, it doesn't go into great description of this, but it's a disturbing thing that happened. But he falls in love with her. He falls in love with her. And he goes to his father. He goes to his father, Hamor, and he says, listen, I want you to, I love this girl. and I want her. I want to take her for my wife, and I want you to negotiate with the Israelites so I can have her hand in marriage. So Hamor goes to Jacob, and they sit down and they talk about this. And Jacob's sons are there, and we read that they were very distraught that about what had happened to their sister Dinah. But they kind of pretend to negotiate in good faith with Hamor. Hamor says, "Listen, we want to make this right. My son wants to marry Dinah, and so the sons, who I guess are sort of part of an overall council with their father, they go, well, we'll agree to this on condition that all of the men are circumcised. We don't want our sister to be married to an uncircumcised man, but we want all the men of the city to be circumcised." Was this a way of more or less converting them to Judaism? I don't know. It doesn't go into it too much. Now, on the third day after this mass circumcision of the city, when the pain and the discomfort of having been circumcised was at its height, and the men were incapacitated, two of the brothers, Levi, and Shimon, Simeon in English, they lead a group of men into the city, and they slay all of the male inhabitants. They just take vengeance. Now, and Jacob is appalled by this. Let me just see if I can find it here. Okay. Jacob says, "You have made trouble for me by making me odious to the land's inhabitants, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Since I am few in number, they will gather themselves against me, strike me, and at me, and I and my household will be destroyed." But they said, "Then he should have been allowed to treat," or should he? But they answered, "Should he," that is Hamor, "been allowed to treat our sister as a prostitute?" They argue with their father. And his objection, oh, hi, Betty, good Shabbos. His objection, that is Jacob's objection, we can look at it, and we're saying we can look at it from two points of view. He is dealing with the repercussions, the security and the public relations repercussions of Simeon and Levi's action. This is going to have a bad effect, a bad result for us, because the people are going to hate us. Look what you've done. They're going to wreak violence upon us. Okay, you've taken your vengeance. You know what? It's only a matter of time they're going to take their vengeance on us. And what you've done is you have endangered the people. We might criticize Jacob for not having objected to the moral aspect of what Levi and Shimon had done. You don't lie to people, right? You enter into a negotiation with people. You don't lead them on, and then wreak vengeance on them. But they argue. They sort of scold their father in a way. They say, should Hamor should he have gotten off having raped her sister? Are you telling us that, Dad? So we weren't quite straight with Shem and Hamor, and maybe we weren't quite as straight as. But there is a higher level here of justice, and you know, Jacob is never right with this. Jacob never feels good about this. Even many, many years later, when he's on his deathbed, remember in Egypt, he's in his deathbed, and he gathers his sons around him, and he he speaks of each son, and he says this about Simeon and Levi. I go, Shimon in Hebrew, Levi in Hebrew. In English, Simeon and Levi or Levi. Simeon and Levi are partners, instruments of violence are their plan. Let me not enter their council, nor let my being join their assembly, for they killed a man in their wrath, and in their whim hamstrung an ox. Cursed is their wrath so fierce, and their fury so harsh. I will disperse them in Jacob, scatter them in Israel. So he's thinking about this. Jacob is thinking about the actions of these two sons, even in his later days. He said these boys did not do the right thing. They're too hot-headed. They're hot-headed. They're fanatics, and I'm not gonna take their advice. I'm not gonna consult with my sons. Now they're older men. I'm not even going to consult with them because of this dastardly deed that they had done. And yet, the Torah in a couple of places speaks of the moral outrage of the sons against what Shem had done to their sister. They are morally outraged and giving a certain justification for their actions. So the question that we are faced with this morning as we look at this passage is was their action justified? And this argument, some would say yes, some would say no. This argument continues into the Middle Ages. It continues into the Middle Ages. There were two great scholars in the early Middle Ages, or the early Middle Ages. Maybe you've heard of them. Maimonides, of course. You've all heard of Maimonides. And there was Nachmanides. Maimonides was in Spain and later on in Egypt. I think Nachmanides was later. Nachmanides lived in France. So, you can get them mixed up, Nachmanides and Maimonides. But they took different approaches to this. Maimonides wrote a code of Jewish law called the Mishneh Torah, and he in a section that it's called the Laws of Kings, he says that the brothers were justified. They were justified. He takes the position that what they did was right. And how does he justify his justification of Simeon and Levi? He does it this way. He says, there are 7 Noahide laws in the Torah. What are the Noahide laws? After Noah, after the flood, God established 7 laws for all human beings. Now, you will hear me and you will hear other rabbis speak of 613 laws in the Torah, and those apply to the Jews, right? We have a lot of laws. for which we are responsible in one way or another. The rest of the world, as far as we're concerned, have 7 laws that are basic to all humanity, and all humanity is judged by those 7 laws. One of those laws, and it could be argued that that law, that all the other laws of the Noahide Laws are dependent upon it. One of those laws says that all people, all peoples, all nations must establish courts of law to adjudicate the guilt or innocence of someone who is accused of a crime. The sin of Hamor, who was the head of that Canaanite tribe, his son Shem, who had done that terrible thing to Dinah, his sin and the sin of the people of that town was that they had no courts of law. Nobody stopped Hamor from doing what he did. Nobody, they did not hold him responsible for what he had done. And Maimonides concludes that there was kind of a collective guilt on the part of the people in Shem because they didn't prevent and they didn't punish Hamor for what Shem for what he had done. Now, Nachmanides, on the other hand, he argues, and this is the nice thing about being a Jew, we can argue, right? He takes the other position. He says, he agrees that there is a law, he agrees with Maimonides that, yeah, there is a law that requires all the Gentile nations to create courts of law, but, he says, and this is where he disagrees with Maimonides, there is no concept of collective guilt in Judaism. We don't have that. Idea of collective guilt. He asks if he asks if Simeon and Levi were justified, if they were justified in what they did, why did Jacob criticize them? Jacob, we see on his deathbed, never quite forgave his sons for this incident. If they were justified, if collective guilt were acceptable, why did Jacob continue to criticize his sons for what they had done? In Judaism, we see that we have different expectations of Jews from the expectations that we have of Gentiles. In Judaism, if part of the Jewish people, there is this concept of Kol Yisrael Eravim Zeh B'Zeh, that all Israelites are responsible for one another. There is the sense that I remember an expression growing up, a shanda for the goyim. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but when a Jew did something that wasn't right and it was public, we all felt a certain shame. It was like, you are bringing shame upon the Jewish people. If there was a Jew, we open up the newspaper and we see somebody with what would appear to be a Jewish name, or maybe somebody we knew in the community, we would feel a sense, a collective sense of guilt. Do you Marlene, would you agree with that? We kind of went, ugh, it's a shanda for the goyim.
All the
Huh?
All the time. It happens
Yeah.
ever since I was young. You feel shame for your
Yeah.
fellow Jew, no matter what.
Yeah. We
And,
don't do
and if
that.
you're really guilty, it's really worse.
Yeah, when you know, and those financial horrible things, Milken and Madoff, and you go,
How
oh,
about Epstein?
Epstein, you go, oh my gosh, oh, Jews doing horrible things. This is and we this but we don't, so we have a sense of collective responsibility in the Jewish people, but we don't apply that, interestingly, to the Gentiles. You know, this is a Jewish kind of thing. Now,
Rabbi,
yeah,
you're right, but you have to remember we are a religion, and when the groups like the Irish,
yeah,
they're ashamed when an Irishman commits a crime, or the Italians, or I mean, I know I've heard it among, because I have a lot of friends from different backgrounds. Russians, they all say, "Look, a nice Italian boy. Look, he brought shame." So
yeah,
it's the same with
yeah. You know, I agree with you,
different
but
groups
I think it's a little more pronounced among the Jews
because it's a
because
religion.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, if you're a fairly small minority and one of your own screws up, as we say,
Right.
you feel that you know, if there are millions and millions and millions of people in your group and one messes up, you I don't know whether that sense of collective shame or guilt is as pronounced, but I'm sure Italians and Irish people probably feel it as well. Maimonides says we are responsible not only for our own conduct, but for the conduct of those around us. That's what he's saying. If 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 someone acts morally wrong, not only you know, not only must I not do something that's morally wrong, I have to stop others from doing it. This is what he says. Now, if I fail to do this, if I fail to take actions, if I fail to take an action to prevent you know, bad things from happening in my society, in my community, the question is, am I guilty? That's the question between Maimonides and Nachmanides. The question is, you know, those men of Shechem, they did not commit the rape. One of them did. One of them did. That boy named Shechem. He was the one who did it. The others were bystanders. They were bystanders. Maybe they saw what was going on and they didn't prevent it. Maybe they knew this young man was given to such actions. They did not punish him. And they were bystanders. The question is a bystander guilty? I didn't do it. I just didn't want to get involved. I saw what was going on. Officer, I heard some screaming going on there, but you know, I didn't want to get involved. Wasn't my, and so I didn't do anything. Now I want to read you something from the Talmud. Okay, see if I can find it here. Okay, I should have put it on the screen share, but I really didn't have time. So this is from Tractate Shabbat 54b. Listen to what these rabbis said. It was related that Rabbi Hanina, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Chaviva taught the statement below. Okay. The Gemara comments, throughout the order of Moed. That's okay. This is just introduction. Wherever this pair of sages is. Okay, here. Listen to these words. This is what all these rabbis are quoting. Anyone who has the capability to effectively protest the sinful conduct of the members of his household and did not protest, he himself is apprehended for the sins of the members of his household and punished. If he's in a position to protest the sinful conduct of the people of his town and he fails to do so, he is apprehended for the sins of the people of his town. If he is in a position to protest the sinful, okay, just hold on there. So here we have a principle. Now, these are Jewish sages talking to other Jews. He's saying, you have a responsibility. You see someone doing something horrible, right? You see something really morally or ethically improper going on, and you don't do anything, you are guilty. You're guilty if you allow other Jews to do this. Okay, we know we can. When it talks about his town, they're probably talking about the Jewish community. But what about the world in general? Should Jews protest when Gentiles? Okay, I could say, they're the goyim. Let them do what they want. You know, they're not Jews. I'm not responsible for what I am somewhat responsible for what other Jews do, but I am not responsible for what my Christian or Muslim or secular neighbors are doing. Listen to the next part. If he's in a position to protest the sinful conduct of the whole world and he fails to do so, he is apprehended for the sins of the whole world. Rav Papa said, and the members of the household of the exilarchs. Okay, well, anyway. Now, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? We talk about tikkun olam. This is a big deal in Reform Judaism. You know, obviously, we want Jews, and Jews don't always do the right thing. We know that. You know, there are Jews in jail, Jews who do immoral and unethical things. We know that. We have our rogues, we have our brutes in the Jewish people as well, like any other people. But we are supposed to take responsibility, meaning, you know, whatever we can do to teach them the right thing, to prevent them from going astray, and to hold them responsible, we're supposed to. But the rest of the world, if we see things going on, now here's a question. The outgoing president, President Trump, and I don't want to get all political here, but he has said, America first, right? America first. And he, when the Saudi crown prince was implicated in the murder and dismemberment of a resident of the United States, somebody who had status, Khashoggi, his name was, a journalist. They murdered and dismembered him and took him out of the Saudi embassy in Istanbul. Basically, what President Trump said, American foreign policy isn't about getting involved in the moral implications of the actions of other governments. We had nothing to do with it. We're not going to hold the Saudis responsible. It's about trade. It's about oil. That's what it's about. Before the dust up with the Chinese, the president was objecting, and rightly so, to Chinese unfair trade practices. And I think we would all say that was a good thing. But there are terrible things going on in China when it comes to human rights, horrible things. And where other presidents, both Republican and Democrats in the past, have said, you know, what you're doing in Tibet is wrong. What you're doing in Xinjiang province with the Muslims, with the Uyghurs, it's basically concentration camps. Some of those cheap items we buy in the supermarkets or the department stores in America have been made by slave laborers. And other presidents, President Bush, certainly President Obama and others have said, this is wrong. We're going to lift up our voices. It's not just America first. It's not just about business. And to me, I think they're keeping with what we just read in the Talmud. You got to speak up. If you don't speak up, and sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to prevent other people from doing horrible things. Sometimes you as an individual are powerless, but at least you can speak up and protest. We are responsible. What we see in the Talmud, we are responsible not only for the behavior of other Jews, but for all human beings. Oh boy, is that a heavy responsibility? But you know, we do have that. We carry that on our shoulders as Jews. That when we see our own government doing something wrong, you know, we're supposed to speak up. Now, but we have to be nuanced here. Bystander is not a perpetrator, okay? Now, getting back to what Simeon and Levi did, were they justified in killing all of the men of Shechem? There is a difference between being a bystander and a perpetrator, right? You know, there is a difference. In the Talmud clearly says that a bystander is held responsible. You see something and you didn't say something, you're guilty. But are you subjected to a punishment for being a bystander? Well, the Talmud, if you notice, it doesn't prescribe any kind of punishment for the bystander. He's seized, right? He's apprehended. It's been suggested by some of the rabbis that there was really no legal punishment inflicted upon the bystander. You saw something, you didn't say anything, shame on you. We're not going to put you in prison. We're not going to inflict any kind of penalty on you, but on some level or another, shame on you. Now. There was a wonderful German philosopher, theologian by the name of Karl Jaspers, who I'm not sure where he was during the Second World War. I don't know enough about him, but he was of that generation that saw what had happened in the Holocaust and what had happened in German society. And he was a very thoughtful Christian, a very intelligent, insightful philosopher. And, you know, as I'm pretty sure I think he's German, a man of conscience, and was quite ashamed of what had transpired in Germany, not only with regard to what the Nazis did, the Nazis who had actually carried out the murder of millions of people, but also he was ashamed of the passivity, the lack of protest among the average German citizens. Now, we know that there were some who did speak out, but the vast majority, we know, did not. Listen to the words of Karl Jaspers. There exists a solidarity among men as human beings and makes each co-responsible for every wrong and every injustice in the world, especially if the crime is committed in his presence or with his knowledge. So you hear what he's saying? Do you want me to read that again? Because it's really quite good, I think. There exists a solidarity among men. Remember, he didn't grow up in the time of gender neutral words. There exists a solidarity among men as human beings that makes each co-responsible for every wrong and every injustice in the world, especially if a crime is committed in his presence or with his knowledge. If I, in fact, do whatever I can to prevent them, if I fail to do whatever I can to prevent them, I too am guilty. If I see somebody about to murder another human being, about to rape another human being, or really inflict an injustice upon another human being, and I do nothing, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. If I was present at the murder of others without risking my life to prevent it, I feel guilty in a way that is not adequately conceivable, either legally, politically, or morally. Listen to that. He's saying that it's not legal. It's not legal guilt. He says, I feel guilty in a way that is not adequately conceivable, either legally, politically, or morally. He's saying, it's different. It's a different kind of guilt from the people who actually do it, right? And it's not something that can necessarily be punishable by law, right? That I live after such a thing has happened weighs upon me as indelible guilt. So he's talking about a different kind of guilt for the bystander. He's saying and as a German, I'm not sure what had happened where he was during the Second World War, but he says, listen, maybe I didn't lift up my voice. I'm not sure. Maybe he was in exile. I'll have to look up about Karl Jaspers. I need to know more about him. But he said, you know what? I didn't lift up my voice enough. I did, all of us have to take a look at what we did or what we did not do. What we did not do to prevent the Holocaust. That's what he's saying. And it's not something that you're going to punish anybody and put them on trial for. It's a moral, it's a metaphysical kind of guilt that weighs on you to the day you die. So what we see here, if we get back to Maimonides and Nachmanides, in terms of whether Simeon and Levi did the right thing or not, I think we would, at least I would agree with Nachmanides' approach, and I would disagree with Maimonides' approach. Nachmanides makes it clear that that bystanders who do nothing, maybe by the definition of a bystander is someone who does nothing. They are guilty, but they're not punishable. Collective guilt might have a place. Collective punishment has no place in our Jewish faith. There is a sense of collective guilt. I would call it collective responsibility. I might not be guilty, but I am responsible. Okay, my inaction makes me responsible. On Yom Kippur, we have the Ol Chetz. We do this. I gotta lower my screen. We do this, and there's a long list of things, and a lot of those things you didn't do, right? You didn't. Most of us were not unethical in our business practices, but what did we do? We go like this. Most of us didn't commit adultery, but we do this anyway. Most of us, there are some of those things you look and you go, oh, maybe I kind of, I did, I wasn't as honest as I should. I wasn't as careful about the world and my neighbor. Maybe I wasn't charitable enough. Maybe I was angry, and you some of them, but there are a lot of them that you didn't do. Why do we all stand up? And it doesn't matter if it's a Reformed, Conservative, or Orthodox synagogue. We do the same thing. Why do we all stand up and do this together? Even if we didn't do those particular sins. Well, the answer is, my neighbor there's somebody in here who's done them. Since we're not going to shame anybody. We're all confessing, all of them. So we don't know who did what. But some of those sins, most of those sins are probably committed in our community. The question is, what's my responsibility for him or her having done those things? Well, let's take theft. Okay, let's take theft. If there was a need in my community, if there was extreme poverty that led to someone feeling the only way that they could sustain themselves and their family was through stealing, and we would say, maybe we weren't charitable enough. How did we allow a situation to exist in our community where people were so desperate that they had to steal? I'm a little bit guilty for that. Maybe I didn't do enough. Maybe, what about those middle class people who are not ethical? And you go, hey, they're living a good life. Why did they cheat? Why did they engage in unethical or predatory kinds of business deals? Well, do I live in a society that is so over materialistic? Am I among those people who just admire rich people and, bigger and better? And did I add to a sense of extreme materialism in my society? Did I go along with it without saying, there are things more important than the car you drive? Now, you might drive a nice older car, and why should I admire you or admire and sort of say this is on a higher level if you drive an expensive, fancy car? He's got a yacht and blah, 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 blah. Am I admiring and speaking in a praiseworthy fashion for the wrong things? Did I, in a subtle way, did I add to a climate that led to theft? And you can go down the whole list of sins and you say, you know, uh, am I, there's that whole question of, am I, if I'm not part of the solution, I am part of the problem. Um, we all like cheap merchandise. Hey, a bargain, a matzia, as we call it in Hebrew or Yiddish, a matzia. We all like to get a matzia. Ooh, I got it, and it was so cheap. But as I mentioned before, some of the products made around the world are made by basically slave labor. It happens. You buy stuff. I have. We don't know. If we do know, I remember the Nike company. The nice sneaker company. You buy those sneakers. I don't spend $125 on a pair of sneakers. I can guarantee you that. But there are people who do. It's a status thing. Well, they were being made in Indonesia. The Nike company does not manufacture anything. It markets, designs and markets, and it contracts out to most factories, mostly in other countries, to manufacture things, their products. Well, there were kids who were actually shackled to their sewing machines and their places of work. Kids, 10, 11 years old, and for hours at a time, getting a couple of bucks a day. And I enjoy, and I go, oh, look at these shoes. Oh, they're wonderful. If I know, if it's brought to my attention that people, human beings, are being oppressed, so I can enjoy a nice pair of sneakers, should I buy those sneakers? Should I support that? Should I lift up my voice and say, Walmart or Macy's or whoever's selling them, you know what? You're wrong. Should I not tell the CEO of Macy's or Amazon or whatever, this is wrong. This is immoral. I object. I'm not going to buy your product. Should I do that? Environmental thing. Hey, listen, we all, if am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? If I buy a car that emits a huge amount of CO2, or the climate warming gases, am I part of the problem? I'm just a bicycle. I don't think about these things. I like the car, so it gets 8 miles a gallon. What do I care? Somebody else's problem. Is it? Is it? While the earth is burning up. So, this week's Torah portion, definitely, I think we come down on the side of Nachmanides, the side of those rabbis mentioned in uh, in um, the Talmud, Carl Jaspers, and Jacob. Quite frankly, Jacob never just could justify what his sons had done. Yes, the men of Shechem were responsible. They had done something wrong by not lifting up their voices, by not objecting and not holding responsible Hamor for what he had done. But did Simeon and Levi have the right to go in and kill them? No, Absolutely not. What they did was wrong. The kind of guilt, if they'd killed only Hamor, maybe they might have had some kind of, maybe you could have said, okay, maybe. I'm not so sure there. We'd have to look at that. But to kill the people of Shechem, the men of Shechem, was absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Okay, that's all I got to say about that. Any comments? Yes, Ursula.
It troubles me that Jacob make a deal and the sons didn't honor that.
Yes.
And for me, that is a huge no, because it was his word.
Yes. Yes.
That was what troubled me.
Yeah. They lied. They lied and they did not keep their word. A deal is a deal. Now you can make the argument, hey, if I'm dealing with an enemy, I'm going to lie to him. I'm going to, but the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, they had come to Jacob in good faith. I'm not saying what, you can make the argument they were guilty by association. They were guilty by being passive. Yes, true. But they were welcomed into Jacob's tent to try and make it right. And there was an agreement. And you're absolutely right, Ursula. It was wrong on that level to go back on agreement and not to have negotiated in good faith. Absolutely. And it brought shame. It brought shame upon Jacob and his family.
Jacob had a lot of troubles.
Oh boy.
And what I think it was just last week, I'll say it over again. I think he was affected by his father's allegiance to Adonai and was willing to sacrifice him. And I think it had a huge impact on him and how he raised his children.
Yes.
I think he was troubled from the very beginning.
Yes.
His differences with his brother. I mean, there's all kinds of sibling rivalry, and there's nothing, in my opinion, I can't stand siblings who don't get along. I say, what a waste of time. What a waste of time. You share something together that nobody else shares, and yet you don't speak for 40 years.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Happens.
It happens. It happens more than you think it happens. But he just had a lot of problems.
I like what
happened?
Yes, I like what you said about Jacob's relationship with his father, Isaac. He wasn't very respectful to his father.
That's right.
His father, he, in cahoots with his mother, we all know this, deceived his father. And here we have another instance in which an unhealthy pattern is handed down from one generation to another, to the next generation in a family. His sons, Simeon and Levi, were very disrespectful. They were disrespectful and dishonest with their father in this matter.
But I made a mistake. It was Isaac who had trouble with it, his father. But I think it was a pattern that was handed down.
It was handed down. Absolutely. And that's very insightful.
But Joseph saved the day at the end.
Joseph tries, and when we get to the stories, he tries to change the pattern. We'll get to that, but that's a good point. Your sins as a young person come back to haunt you when you become a parent. You make some mistakes when you're young, and then you grow up, you mature, and you say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. When I was 20, 21, 22, I shouldn't have done that. So there you are with your own kids, and you don't always tell them what the wild things you did. But they find out. There are no secrets in a family. Eventually it comes out. They find out. And there you are, you're telling your kids, look it, don't do this. And what do they say to you? You know what? Dad, Mom, I know you did it when you were our age. And you're what's that? Hoisted on your own petard. I'm not sure what that means, but I know what it means, but I'm not sure literally what it means. An old expression, hoisted on your own petard. You go, well, don't tell us that we can't smoke marijuana. We know marijuana wasn't a big deal, but we know about you getting drunk in your first year of college. We know about that. We know all about it because Uncle so-and-so told us about it. Okay. It happens. So, but that's a good point. I like, Marlene, that's a good point that you make. Yeah. Betty, we haven't heard from you. What's up? Any takes on it? Oh,
Betty.
She's frozen in time.
Yes. I don't know how to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't have anything to take. I'm just listening.
Okay. All right. You don't have to. It's okay. So, we had a large number of people watching this last night. You know that? It's really.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Can people on Facebook hear us?
Yeah. Actually, you're going out on Facebook. This is going, just the four of you. You're the only people, you're going out right now. You're on television right now.
Wow.
You are on Roku, on our Roku station, on our YouTube station.
I wanted to thank you and Cantor Manny for mentioning the Onyx the last couple of weeks. We all missed Temple. We missed the Onyx. Wait, before you say anything, I would like you perhaps next week not to call them Marlene's Onyx. I am the organizer, but I have a dozen women who are helping to shop and to put together. And although I organize it and I have the biggest mouth, and perhaps I have more time. I feel funny when you say they're Marlene's Onyx, although I appreciate it. And I know it's meant good, but I want everyone to know this is the Sisterhood's project.
You know what? I need to say that you are you have many wonderful qualities. One of them is your humility and the fact that
it is, when we have no sponsors, which is half of the time, the Sisterhood assumes the financial, not a burden, but we pay for it.
Okay.
And they are fundraisers, what people don't realize. And I want everyone in the congregation, and perhaps next Friday you could mention that.
Okay, I'll try and remember.
I'll remind you. I'll remind you.
Good, remind me.
Because I really.
Yeah, you're right.
The Sisterhood is a wonderful organization.
Yeah. Well, you always make, that's a mistake I should know. I should know better about, when you begin to thank people, you always forget You always forget somebody. When you do it publicly, either just don't do it at all or do an exhaustive list in which you thank everybody and you
Right.
don't leave anybody off the list. Yeah.
Right. But I do appreciate the recognition.
Yeah.
But I just hope we can get back to normal. We will.
Yeah. You know, I think I might, well, next week it's going to be Hanukkah. Maybe I'll have a latke and in addition to the challah on, I don't know, a nice chocolate eclair. I like chocolate eclairs.
I do too.
Or a Danish.
Supposed to have jelly donuts.
Jelly
How do you say Sephiroth or
Sufganiot.
Sufganiot? That was close.
Yeah, you were close. That's close enough. Oh boy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam kiddushanu b'mitzvotav l'chitatev ratzitzit. Okay, okie. I'll get my guitar. Hine matovu manayim, shevet achim gam yavad. 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 Hine matov, shevet achim gam yavad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yavad. Hine matovu manayim, shevet achim gam yavad. Hine matovu manayim, shevet achim gam yavad. Oh boy. Go on to, I think it's page 30. Let's take a look here. Hey, I'm pretty sure we start on page 30. Yes, Matovu. Matovu. Ohalecha Yaakov. Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu. Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. We go to page 33 and we read together at the top of the page. My God, I thank you for my life,
body, and soul.
Help me
realize that I am something new,
someone who never existed before, someone original and unique in the world. For if there had ever been someone like me, there would have been no need for me to exist. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei Chol Basar, Umafli Ma'asot. Betty, I want you to know I talked to Barry in France 2 days
That's
ago.
nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
I called him. He's still in southern France. I called him, and we talked about your mom, and I tried to relate to him some of my remarks. You know, I did not write the sermon out that or the hesped, the eulogy that I delivered for your mother. I spoke from notes. I spoke from my heart, but I tried to relate to him the things that I had said. You know what I told him? You know, he is restoring a house. See, and what's his wife's name?
Deborah.
He and Deborah are restoring a house that's 200 years old in southern France. And I told him, and he had never heard of it, I told him that he has to, it is a must. He's got to tune into the PBS series Escape to the Chateau. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
It's a great, I think it's on channel 17, WLRN. It's an English couple that has bought a chateau, and they bought it for less than $400,000, I think, in grim shape, more in northern France, in a rural area, and they're restoring it. It's a great series, and I said, Barry, you and your wife are doing that. you have to see it. It's a great
what's
series.
the name of it, Rabbi?
Escape to the Chateau.
I watched all of PBS. I never heard of that.
Well, it's on channel 17, not on
I
channel
watch
2.
channel 2 usually. They're
Yeah.
different.
But
Escape to the
it's really interesting to see how they took this, and it was this enormous undertaking. They're making it into a place for weddings and special events. You know, mostly English people or British people will come to do this. But every week you see they have some horrible situation that they have to deal with. It's like 50 something rooms in this place. And they have
Wow.
a lot of it's a moat around it, and they have lots of outbuildings. And one of the rooms upstairs is full of bats.
Oh my.
They just closed it up and they said, we'll get to it sometime. But they've made so many of the rooms just gorgeous. And she is a designer and he's an engineer. And they had to put heat and electricity into the building and a lot of things. But anyway, that's an aside. Page 36. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lesech vivina lachachim ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam zokef kefufim. Page 38. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam roka haaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hamechin metzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hanoten la'ayef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hama avir sheina me'inai utnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani ben chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Oter Yisrael b'tifara. Page 50. Baruch sha'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch hu Baruch hu. Baruch sha'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch hu Baruch hu Baruch osei bereshit Baruch omer ve'osei Baruch ozer u'mekayem Baruch merachem al haaretz Baruch sha'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch hu Baruch hu Ata Adonai Melech Mecholot Batishbachot. The Ashrei, page 52. You know what we're going to do? We're going to do the English today. And we start on page, we're going to do a little bit of the Hebrew at the beginning, a little bit of the Hebrew at the end. And then we're going to do it responsively. I will read out part of it. I will chant part of it. Try and keep the traditional chant. In the indented sentences on page 54, you respond to me, okay? So we begin on page 252 in the Hebrew and the English. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yahalu chatzela, Ashrei am shekachalu, Ashrei am she'Adonai Elohav. Now, I will do this, and then we will continue on page 54. Happy are those who dwell in your house. They forever praise you. Happy the people who have it so. Happy the people whose God is Adonai. Page 54. You will do the indented passages. I will extol you, my God and sovereign, and bless your name forever and ever. Together,
Every day will I bless you and praise your name forever and ever.
Great is Adonai and much acclaim. God's greatness cannot be fathomed. Now you, one
generation shall laud your works to another and declare your mighty acts.
The glorious majesty of your splendor and your wondrous acts will I recite. Together.
They shall talk of the might of your awesome deeds, and I will recount your greatness.
They shall celebrate your abundant goodness and sing joyously of your beneficence.
Adonai is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in kindness.
Adonai is good to all, and God's mercy is upon all God's works.
All your works shall praise you, Adonai, and your faithful ones shall
praise you, Adonai.
They shall talk of the majesty of your sovereignty and speak of your might.
To make God's mighty acts known among mortals and the majestic glory of your sovereignty.
Your sovereignty is eternal. Your dominion is for all generations.
Adonai supports all who stumble and make all who are bent stand straight.
The eyes of all look to you expectantly, and you give them their food when it is due.
You give it open-handedly, feeling every creature to its content.
Adonai is beneficent in all ways and faithful in all works.
Adonai is near to all who call upon God with sincerity.
Adonai fulfills the wishes of those who fear God. Adonai hears their cry and delivers them.
Adonai watches over all who love God, but all the wicked God will destroy.
My mouth shall utter the praise of Adonai, and all creatures shall bless God's holy name forever and ever.
We will bless you, God, now and always. Hallelujah.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך ובשור שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Page 55. Hallelujah. 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 El Bekocho. Hallelujah. Bekirya Uzo. Hallelujah. Bigvuratav. Hallelujah. Kerov Goodlow. Hallelujah. 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 Take a shofar. Hallelujah. Never velchinor. Hallelujah. Tofu machol. Hallelujah. Biminim ve'ugab. Hallelujah. 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 Betziltele Shema. Hallelujah. Betziltele Trua. Kol Hanshama Tel Hallelujah. Kol Hanshama Tel Hallelujah. 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 Page 56. Shochina, what am I doing here? I'm sorry. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol HaKadosh B'Shamayim Uva'aretz Ki Lecha Ne'eh Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu V'Imotenu Shir U'Shivcha Halel V'Zimra Oz Memshala Netzech Gidula Gevara Tehillah Tiferet Kedusha Malchut Brachot Hodaot Mi'ata V'Ad Olam Baruch Ata Adonai El Melech Gadol B'Tishba'ot El Hodaot Adonai Niflaot Abocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elchei HaOlamim Yitgadal V'Yitkadash Shamei Rabba Yomad Barach Cherutei V'Yamnech Malchutei V'Chayechon V'Yomechon V'Chayecha Beit Yisrael Ba'gola Ba'gola U'izman Karibim Amen Yehei Rabba Mevorach Ve'olam U'mei Maya Yitbarach Yishtabach Yitbar V'Turmam V'Naseh V'Tadar V'Tala Shmei Kudusha Elam Min Kol Berchata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechemata Damiran Bialma Bimaru. Amen. And we rise for the Baruch. Lai 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 Yai lai 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 lai
Rahu et Adonai. Rahu et Adonai.
Baruch Adonai Olam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Mevorach le'olam vaed. Lie, 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 lie. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. We thank God for all of the physical light in the universe, the sun, the moon, the stars. We also thank God for that inner light, that light of love, the light of knowledge, the light of the Spirit. Page 62. V'harerenu b'toratecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'lera et shemecha v'lo nevosh v'lo nikalem v'lo nikashel le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha Agadol v'hanora batachnu nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha Baruch atah Adonai Abocher b'amo Yisrael v'ahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leholam Ha'ed, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'otecha, ve'hayu ha'dvarim ha'ed, asher anochi mitzavacha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levavecha, v'dibarta v'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha b'derech, Tochmecha ufkumech, ufshartam lo'od al yedecha, v'hayu letotachot, bein enecha, uchtavtam, al mezuzot beitecha, u'visharecha, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. Page 72. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורתי לו עושה פלא, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאול, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו, ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, צור ישראל ומה בעזרת ישראל, ותחנומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai al Yisrael. And we turn to page 76, and we rise for the tefillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chazon
Something serving.
Dezoker chasdei avot v'ima'ot umevi gula lifnei v'neim v'ma'am shemo v'ahava melech ozer Moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai magen Avraham Ezrat Sarah atah gibor l'olam Adonai hayei meitim atah Rav Moshiach Ashiva Ruach Marina Gashem Mechakel Chayim Beches Mechayek Meitim Amim Rabbi So Mechaklim Derofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishanei Afar Michal Giburo Umi Sovela Melech Aye Umatzmiach Yeshua B'nemanata Lachachayot Baruch atah Adonai Lechaye Amen. Page 82. Nekadesh et Shimcha B'olam Kishem Shamati Shimoto Ishmei Maro Kakatuv al Yad Nevi'echam Karaseh El Sevi Amar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzvaot Melech Kol Haaretz Kevodo Lumatam Baruch Yomeh Baruch Kevod Adonai Nikomo Udivrei Kochacha Katuv Leimor Yimloch Adonai Le'olam Elohai Yitzio the door vador hallelujah the door vador nagi God lecha ula neitzat netzachim kedushat chanati v'shivacha Eloheinu midino lo yemut ha'omer Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We really do need to turn a little further in our prayer books to page 250. Page 250. Yismechu v'malchutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei. Mekadeshei Shavit Shabbat Kulam Yisbeu Veyitangu Mituvecha Shabbat Yismechu Malchutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat Oneg Shabbat Yismechu Vemalchutecha Shomrei, 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 Shabbat, Korei, Oneg Shabbat, Ashri, Ratzita bo, Kidashto, Shabbat, Chemdat Yaminoto, Karata, Shabbat, Yismechu, Malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat, Korei, Oneg Shabbat, Yismechu, V'malchutecha, Shomrei, 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 Shabbat, Korei, Oneg Shabbat, Zecher, L'maaseh Bereshit, Shabbat, Zecher L'maaseh Bereshit Shabbat Yismechu Malchutecha Shomrei Shabbat V'korei oneg Shabbat. Okay. Page 255. Ursula, would you read for us that second paragraph beginning with the words on this holy Shabbat?
Okay. I'm gonna-
What page?
Page 255.
The thing is, I have the prayer for
Oh,
travelers.
you have another edition.
Yes,
Okay.
I tried to find it. I know I have it, but
Yeah,
may
we
I-
all got to get, I got to get you the regular Mishkan Tefillah.
Yes.
I'll get you one. Let me know. Let me know when you want to pick it up. Okay, but on page 55, let's read together. On this holy
Holy
Shabbat,
Shabbat.
On this
may we draw nearer to life, to peace,
No,
and
peace
to
and
joy.
joy.
May we
May we
find true rest, holiness in our
And then
deeds, worth in our
Truth in our
study of
study.
Torah.
Torah.
Let
Let
us
us
feed on the
feed
love of
of
goodness.
goodness.
Let
Let
us
us
drink
drink
from the
from the
love
love
of goodness,
goodness,
restrain our
our
thirst for
thirst,
excess,
excess,
and cleanse our
cleanse
hearts to
to
serve
serve
life
On this
well.
holy Shabbat,
On this
may we
holy
draw
Holy
Shabbat,
near
Shabbat,
may we
may
draw
we
nearer
near
in peace,
life
in
in
and
life,
peace.
enjoy.
and enjoy. Baruch atah
Baruch
Adonai
atah Adonai,
shenolcha levatcha b'yirah na'am. And now we turn to page 258. Sim, shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Ken v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu. Yalko Yisrael amecha. Barcheinu yotzreinu kulanu ke'echad. Beor panecha. Sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Baruch atah Adonai hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. What we just read in English there, I think is so much. Oh, look who's there, Desiree. Good to see you. What is so, I think it's the essence of Shabbat. It says, curb what was it, something of excess, our thirst for excess.
Yes.
We all have to learn the difference between what we need and what we want. What our needs are actually fairly modest. Our needs are fairly modest in this life. We have to have a roof over our heads. We have to have food on the table, clothes on our backs. We all need a certain sense of security in this world where we're not frightened to live in our neighborhoods. We all need love. We all need some friends who care about us. We all need a little bit of beauty in our lives, a little bit of culture. Uh, we all need health, but what we should avoid, and I think this is very much part of Judaism and very much part of the message of Shabbat, is not to be excessive in anything, to take the shvil hazahav, as we say in Hebrew, golden mean, to have enough. We do not believe that people should suffer or do without, except on Yom Kippur. Then you do without food. But people should, there's nothing wrong with being prosperous. There's nothing wrong with having a few dollars at the bank and having some creature comforts. It's just the excess. It's just the excessive materialism that pervades human societies. That's what we should avoid. That's what we should avoid. thanking God for what we have, which is so much, and saying, uh, we don't have to be excessive in our acquisition of things. We should rejoice with what we have. That doesn't mean we shouldn't work hard. It means we should work hard. We should apply ourselves to whatever endeavors we have in our lives, but not to be excessive, not to be, I like the word excessive and obsessed, they're related.
Yeah, they
When
are
you
together.
fixate on something that you gotta have, you gotta have, you gotta have, and you go, that's obsessive and that's excessive. Eat, you don't have to eat tons. You can eat enough. You should exercise. Exercise is a good thing, but don't overdo it. Some people who are obsessive and excessive, be healthy. Be healthy. Walk a little bit. Work out, a little bit. That's good. But don't be excessive with it. It's crazy. What do you want to be? You want to be Mr. You want to be Atlas? You want to be Mr. and Miss America? It's not necessary. When sometimes you hit a point of diminishing return. We see last night, I always do what Bella did, Uvayoma Shvi'i Shavat Vayinafash. God rests, right? God needs to rest. Come on, give me a break. No, God rests in a way. There's movement and there's stillness, there's words, there's silences. And I liken it to an artist. I'm not much of an artist, but I've tried my hand a little bit at this and that. Maybe you have too. You're painting, and it's not too bad. It's pretty good, right? Maybe you're not Michelangelo, but you've done something and it's pretty good. And you're looking at it, and you're looking at that tree that you've done in the mountains, and maybe, if you're clever enough to be able to do human figures, that's good. I'm not. I can do landscapes a little bit. And then you go, you know what? I need some trees over there. And you put some extra trees over on the right corner, and you go, it was too much. It was too much. I should have left it alone. I really spoiled the painting by going too far. You ever have that experience? When you didn't back off, when it was really good, and you should just put the brush down, sit back and watch, look at it. I think that's part of the message of Shabbat, not to be obsessed with things, not to be excessive. So to know when enough is enough, when it's a speak, when it's genug, as we say in Yiddish, bastante, Spanish, it's enough. Perfect.
Suficiente.
Huh?
Suficiente.
Suficiente. Oh, okay. It's enough. It's perfect. Don't do any more. Isn't that? Thank you, Ursula. So let's meditate for a moment or two. Put your feet flat on the floor. And let's think about our blessings. And let's rejoice in what we have. And realize that everything else is just icing on the cake. Everything else is just extra. Thank God we are alive with our senses, with our ability to interact with the world. And not to crave, not to be obsessed with any anything, but to be content and to be joyous with who we are, with what we have. Curb our thirst for excess. Take a deep breath. Oh, say shalom bimromav. Oh, say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'himeru, amen. Yah say shalom. Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yah say shalom. Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'himeru, amen. And we rise for the Aleinu on page 586. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה יוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו שטויי הרצון, ולא שמענו משפחות האדמה, ולא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם,
ואנחנו קוראים ומשפחה ומודים
מלכי המלך
מלכי
הגדול,
הקדוש
והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. The mourner's Kaddish on 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shamir Rabba. Yamad Devarach Yamlich Malchute. Achaychon v'yomechon u'chayedecha Beit Yisrael. Agala b'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'le'amayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar Ramam. V'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalach. V'yit u'chabrihu le'elam min kol brachata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Ya'amirat v'yalav imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Uyaseh shalom. Kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oh boy. So let's we did Ein Kelohenu last night at services. Let's do a Don Olam on page 625. Adon Olam Asher Malach Baterem Kol Yetzir Nivra V'eit Nasa Efsachot Azai Melech Shemo Yikra V'yacharei Yitloch Hakol Levado Yimloch Nora Vehu Haya Vehu Hove Vehu Yihye V'yikra Vehu Echad Ve'ein Sheni Lahamshilu Lahasbira Beli Reshit Vali Trachli, Velo Haoz, Behamizra, Behueli, Bechai Koli, Betzur Chevli, Bein Sahara, Behunisi, Umanosli, Manat Kosi, Beyomikra, Beyado, Tafkid Ruhi, Be'edishon, Be'ayira, Be'imruchi, Keviati, Adonai li, Velo Era. Well, we got lots of things happening at the synagogue. Well, virtually that is. We have yoga. There's women's spirituality. I think they're meeting next week.
Monday.
Monday.
Monday, 7 o'clock. You got to go on trending to get the information on how to dial up. We have yoga at 11 a.m. on Mondays. You can do that. Go on any of the media. If you go on the streaming, if you go on Facebook, if you go on YouTube or Roku, you got everything. That's on everything but Zoom. And on Tuesdays at noon, we have Nosh and Schmooze. Last night, I had Rachel Kaplan as my guest on the Bima, and she is interviewing all sorts of interesting people. And she's doing it from her office here in the synagogue. She's interviewed people in Colombia, in England, and people all over the United States who are doing interesting things. And on Tuesday, she's interviewing a man who's 95 years old, a survivor of the Holocaust, who conducts an orchestra. He's of grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. Isn't that interesting? I think he's up in Boca, but she's having him on a Zoom, and so you can tune into that. That's great. The Cantor's class on Thursdays at 6 o'clock. I do meditations every morning at 9:30. From Tuesday to Fridays, and of course we have our drive-in Hanukkah celebration, 6 o'clock this Friday. You drive your car into our parking lot on the north side, on the Rodman side. We're going to have a stage erected. We're going to have little bags to give you of goodies, and we're going to light the Hanukkah menorah, and we're going to sing the Hanukkah songs. You're all going to get a song sheet when you come, and Barbara and I, we haven't decided quite how. Barbara Siegel and I are going to act out, or at least retell, the Hanukkah story. So it should be fun. And of course, we have our regular service at 7:30. Yes, Marlene.
Sisterhood meeting Thursday, 10:30 on Zoom.
Very good. Thank you for that. So lift up your favorite libation. I have Kedem grape juice. When I get home, I'm going to have a little bit of French brandy, which I like. That'll be that'll be the real thing. But this will have to do. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei pari hagafen. Amen. Time. No, I don't know what you have, but at your house, but I have a challah here, and I'm gonna cut this for all of us, and so we have something of an owning to go. Oh, what do you? Oh, I see you have some challah.
Leftover from yesterday.
Perfect. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Oh boy. Well, remember to wear your masks, right? And be careful. Look after yourselves, okay?
Okay.
We've made it this far. We just have to go one day at a time until we're back to some semblance normal, okay? I love you all.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.